Thank you very much, Madam. I know that at first instance, somebody would be saying, I'm coming from a small party, as some people are saying. It is true that in life, there are people who do punch above their weight. And possibly that is that in terms of looking at the magnitude of the Ninth Amendment. But I must hasten to say that I was privileged in 1998 that I steered those cleared a way to introduce the new model, which brought us where we are. So that despite my party being small, I had always at least been given credit, by my countrymen, even though I still have a lot of issues with them, in terms of whether they observe the model, whether they keep that. Remember, even that model, we only had good elections in 2002. By 2006-07, it was completely adulterated, that model. Had we brought back and panel beaten by 2011, where we had to introduce one ballot. So I have been really working, and I was also privileged to lead what was called the Parliamentary Reforms Committee. So in other words, though we have a so to say that you eaglet, don't go around bragging about yourself, but wait for the other people. But of course, these days we said people are full of jealous. In other words, then at times we might have to do some bit of bragging, but with humility. And so I must say that, yes, when I first thought of that with my colleagues in the opposition, it's not only the leader of the LCD who, talked about this idea, but on behalf of the opposition, we decided to launch that motion. I know that there were people who were skeptical whether we would achieve this, but we knew that the right moment would come, and indeed that's what happened. That the right moment for people to accept and embrace the whole spirit of the Ninth Amendment came. And it came in stages. Some other people came and supported us at a certain stage, left us and abundantly left us there and became opposition to what they initially initiated. So that is how the sort of politics are. In the opposition ourselves, there was a lot of issues whether we are not taking on the Prime Minister with a vote of no confidence, but later, the very people who were saying that are now embracing that. Those we started with, again, almost turned against the whole act. So that's the sort of politics, very uncertain, very unpredictable. And maybe unprincipled people to a certain extent, to tell the truth and to be blunt and honest. Because at times we have to be like that. So in other words, the most decisive factor, I think, in terms of people embracing that amendment was when the MPs realized that they wouldn't get their 5 years. So everybody had to start saying, this might help us. Because nobody knows whether they'll be coming back. So maybe you can be saying, it started first from some kind of selfish interest, self-preservation by politicians that they need to go through their 5 years so that their contract don't unceremoniously, get ended or terminated by the PM. And obviously, you can already see that that became a kind of a struggle between a PM who wanted to scare them, because that power of the Prime Minister to dissolve Parliament was a big, scary thing to MPs. And therefore, when they found that there could be time to snatch that power away from him, I think there was a lot of incentive to go for him. And therefore, being blunt again, I don't know how much it helps. This is how it evolved. And indeed, start, capturing the imagination of the nation. At one stage, a lot of people also felt that this is just, politicians being, self-serving kind of exercise that we are involved in. But later, they could see that it was helping them because it was stopping the uncertainty, the anxieties, the political, turmoil, that would follow, triggering of elections, abuse of government resources, people not staying in office, and all those things, the resources involved, And and also we had that problem of the IEC not being there. So everybody started to realize that this might be a kind of really a mechanism to save the country, save ourselves. And then finally a lot of people embraced it. Now even in the ABC itself, where now it has been embraced as the only way of securing everybody and stability of the country. And also securing the reforms. Because if people are fighting in parliament, they are fighting in government, so they don't have time to to look at those very issues. It's even worse now with COVID that we need to have more attention. I know that it coincided, it's a sentencing sort of coincided COVID, and therefore looked like a destabilizing issue. But if we're going to elections, how could we go in elections under COVID? Even the Americans are thinking of postponing. We don't know. A lot of people have to postpone elections. So if you have such mechanism that would allow us to find ourselves head on with COVID, electioneering and all those things. So it really came as a kind of a moment where everybody embraced it. So that is really the issues about support. So briefly on the processes. The motion was introduced around March, signed by the Speaker, but only was announced or published in Parliament around May, end of May, and then Parliament was closed, I think, within 2 or 3 days of its publication in the notice paper. Only had to be discussed again in October. Remember, we opened after the 18th of October, and that motion, for some strange reasons, some government people, including the Deputy Prime Minister himself, supported it, and it went through. Then, of course, immediately after that, we had to go for a drafting, because at that initial moment, it was a question of asking leave of the House. Because as a private member, I cannot not just introduce a bill there, I had to ask the House. So the motion of leave was consented to by the House. And now the drafting, which I had to do privately. And while the bill is still there, nobody's helping with the bill of the drafter. That was done. And then tabled to the Speaker, who almost, I think, sent it to law office, to also panel it up, so that it's in a format that's acceptable in terms of our standards. And once that is done, I was asked to signal it, and I did initial the bill, and then it was tabled in the House. And then there was a big issue whether we should rumble it through, which was my suggestion, because we said there's such a hot issue that government might come and, throw it out or find other ways. But some intervention of some sort came through the NGOs, DPE, where they said, no, we shouldn't, go in that fast way. We should go through the committee stage, which will finally involve public participation. And indeed, we relented to that request. And it went to the committee, but immediately the Parliament was also closed, for recess for the summer vacation. And some strange things happened, I think, around January, that the Prime Minister said he was going to leave. And all of a sudden, people who were not for the bill embraced it again, especially the party now. And also we found an opportunity where the Prime Minister would use it also as a way of stepping out. I know that we already had sections that dealt with vacancies in the Prime Minister, even the procedures. So that was first class. Everybody now even embraced further because we had brought that element. And so it went through, we went to public meetings where people endorsed it. We brought it to Parliament. And then that is the issue, whether we would have enough numbers. So one of the miracles happened when the report of the committee was tabled. One minister, my friend Mr. Nzegele, and the Deputy Prime Minister were now against the bill, even at the level when we were doing the tabling of the reports. And I remember going to plead with them that they shouldn't, challenge or divide us at that stage. They should allow the tabling and then we will see the issues. But they insisted, and indeed, they did that. With some miracle. When we were fighting with the bill, we got 2/3 on the question of tabling. miraculously, we were able to see that we had 2/3, and the bill was run through, I think, within 40 minutes or 1 hour. It went through. It was a miracle. Fighting over whether we should postpone the debate on the report, and we got 2/3 there. Then we went to the hard stuff. We were saved by a miracle of God that we have enough numbers. And when we got into the bill, those people who were opposing it, Mr. Zegele and some people from Mr. Muleli, they even left the chamber. That is why everybody, around 93 members, even those who were opposing it at when it was being tabled at the report level, had to surrender. It is how miraculously this bill has always been. And I think everybody then thought the final battle would be reserved for Senate. Those are fewer people. You have even other people who don't attend, and therefore the 2/3 to a larger group, to a smaller group, was even more difficult. That is why it was one of the biggest battles ever. But I was hopeful, because somebody would ask, okay, with that kind of situation, how do you expect the Senate also to pass it through? I got a lot of solace from the fact that during the prorogation, after the bill has gone through the National Assembly, Prime Minister and his deputy broke Parliament, we know that, and also, sort of really unfairly dealt with His Majesty. So I thought, as a person, that a lot of chiefs now would be on our side, because the way Section 91 of our Constitution was employed by the Prime Minister and his deputy, and therefore I thought we'd have a lot of sympathy. But there was such a big battle, and which everybody knew, that we finally got through. And I still thank the leader or the deputy leader of AD, also the role he played. Finally, when their amendment could not go through, that they thought that the best thing was to accept the amendment. Again, it miraculously also went through. The president made one of the most brilliant rulings he made, about bringing an amendment when he's there. It was a wonderful thing. So we got such support that we never expected, despite such resistance that was put to the whole thing. And we were really thankful for whatever happened in the whole issue. And therefore, it is history now that His Majesty signed that, and it's now law. The government has gazetted it also, and so we are indeed elated, and indeed one feels that one has been vindicated, in terms of the effort that has been put by all different players that one has mentioned, that Basotho wanted to have this 9th Amendment so that we don't have undue dissolution of Parliament and all those things that were associated, with going to elections. Of course, there will be a lot of challenges in terms of what do you do. The MPs do as they want, to put a PM every day, because that is what the people are saying. I hope not. And that we also will develop mechanism not to make an appointment of Prime Minister a playground for MPs. So we would also seriously consider those issues. For instance, whether we wouldn't need to have more time for a Prime Minister to qualify for pensions, like 36, so that in a 5-year spell, you don't have so many people qualifying to be with pensions as Prime Minister, so that we should find issues that would not make an incentive for somebody to become a Prime Minister. Of course, we also need robust coalition agreements that should, be able to sustain, that period and time that they are. So even this very coalition that we're going to talk about, it is how to sustain it. And if we put our issues right, that will be another test as to whether we can have a sustainable coalition government and agreement. So those will be the issues really that will follow from there. So we know that the bill has been passed as law. The Prime Minister right now was also the most cornered man in terms of the developments that happened. My suspicion is that what happened on the 11th of May 2020 is also the impact of the bill. When the Prime Minister and his close supporters could see that they were already caught up, they thought that the best thing was to relent and then see whether they can fight being inside the new coalition or disrupt it, as I think they were trying to do. And so I think the bill has already had its first victory, where the Prime Minister, those things that happened on 11, I think one of the most decisive factor was the 9th Amendment. And I think now that people are talking about him resigning tomorrow or today, it is again the impact of that. Because he himself, when he addressed the nation, he said, now that the bill has been passed, His Majesty has signed it, now I'm ready to go on the 29th. So he was also going on the strength of the 9th Amendment. So I think it has really, again, vindicated us. It has helped the nation. So I think everybody has benefited from the 9th Amendment. And so, as I said, yes, what are the other challenges that one sees? Political parties in Lesotho, especially when they're in government, they survive on political patronage. And I think that is one battle or that issue that brings down coalition parties. It is because there is what I can call rampage patronage, which might necessarily even involve corruption. But to me, the main thing is patronage. So my big issue would be whether the question of registration of political parties, funding of political parties, integrity of political parties, whether we don't need an authority to deal with that. So register them, to fund them, to monitor them in terms of integrity. Even arrangements as coalition agreements are looked into serious. If you give an example of the arrangement of that one of 1880, clearly that was patronage. Can such agreement even be sustained, not challenged? Brought before an authority that can say, this is patronage, some kind of arrangement like those, whether they cannot be challenged as patronage, a deputy minister for another deputy minister, which is even unconstitutional for that matter. Because our law says when the minister is not there, it is his deputy. So if people make an arrangement of a deputy minister or another deputy minister, well, the substantive minister who is the deputy in terms of our constitution. So you can see how some people don't mind about patronage, even in terms of arrangement that are made, let alone some other things that are hidden. Even the other ones, patronage would they would overstep even the constitution to do patronage. So to me, I'm saying political parties don't concentrate on public good, they only concentrate on private good. And I think we have to find a formula on that. To me, that would be one of the most pertinent issues that we should deal around. So that will be a reform that I'll be looking into. Of course, economic reforms is a very critical one because of COVID. So I would not waste time, but just to highlight that we seriously, have to consider that post-COVID and saying what are issues of national survival. What are the lessons of national survival that we have learned out of COVID that we should not allow again, that they happen, and say never in our life this should happen, that we have become such a shame and disgrace that we cannot even feed ourselves for 2 weeks. Given, the climate we have, the kind of soils we have, and all these things, the kind of assistance that the student has been exposed to since independence in terms of agriculture and support that we're getting international, that we could not sustain ourselves for such a short time. It is a shame. And those are the issues that I think that will need a serious national, introspect that we should undergo through. Then the issue of this new proposed coalition, yes, it has come as an accident of some sort, but we will have to find a way of doing it, because otherwise, if we didn't have numbers of these 10 parties, the Prime Minister would have undermined this. Because remember that the first time when the names were read in the National Assembly, I think that was on the 8th, they were not able, the two DCABC were not able to make the government, even though it's called Grand Coalition, because normal Grand Coalition is an overwhelming numbers of the big parties themselves, that they wouldn't need small parties to come. But because of the challenge, you will see that those small parties, in terms of ousting Ndale Thabane, and in terms of supporting that new coalition is so decisive, even though it might look like just people coming for their goodies. But at least in terms whether we see that as an advance, that involvement was necessary. Whether we should see again patronage in terms of how much people get, that's something else that has to be debated. And I hope that we will be able to deal with that issue of the, big cabinet. I can't say it now, but I know there will be a commitment to see how to deal with it. Obviously, yes, post-Thabane, we still suspect that there will be still a lot of opposition. But I think it won't, sort of dampen our resolve to do good. And maybe that opposition will help, for government to really be on its toes. So I would see, though it will take in the, on the surface it will appear that we're not going to have a very formidable opposition, but I think we are going to get one. And therefore that will also maybe good for democracy, hoping that we will not be opposed for the sake of opposing. There will be a lot of principles involved. I have had the leader of the LCD, and I know him, and I hope that he's going to give a principled opposition, as he has said, and I hope that we will be able to come through. And so